I don't know where 20 years went by. We had such different lives. And I thought everything would have changed in all that time. But that day, that moment, everything turned upside down. And it was just a drink. And I didn't know anything about it until it happened. 20 years and a lot of time later, I went back to my college reunion. The last time I went, we were all still students. And we were all young and carefree. But that day, after 20 years, all my friends were different. They were all older, and each of them had changed with the twists and turns of life. And then, there he was again, James. We drank more and more, laughing and crying at each other's stories, losing track of time. But as the drinks got stronger and stronger, the mood gradually warmed up, and people were reminiscing, encouraging, and sharing old memories. Then James came up to me. Hey, do you remember that time I tried to ask you out, but couldn't? James looked at me as he spoke, his eyes no longer the innocent boy they had been. And as he spoke, I was transported back 20 years. Back then, James was the one who debated whether or not to confess to me, but ultimately closed his mouth and turned away. We hadn't spoken again since high school, and without really knowing what was on his mind, I had passed him off as just another guy. But as he approached me, emotions that had been buried inside of me stirred. There was me then, there was me now, and there must have been something about him then too. James spoke again. Luna, I really cared about you, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you then. And I wish I could start over with you now. My head was spinning, and my heart was beating fast. Here we were, 20 years later, still sharing those feelings. We shared a drink, looking into each other's eyes, and in that moment, I was feeling James. Next to him, I was so emotionally drawn to him. And in that moment, I knew I had no choice but to be with him. James and I were facing each other. There was no longer any distance between us in our drunkenness. I felt him approach me, and I couldn't suppress the feelings that were rising inside me. Everything went quiet, as if time had stopped. We hadn't moved apart for a moment. At that moment, James pulled me into his arms, and he pressed his lips hard against mine. In an instant, all the emotions I felt exploded. In that moment, I felt everything we had felt for each other 20 years ago come flooding back. When he crashed his lips against mine, I couldn't think of anything else. Everything was confusing, and in my drunken stupor, I didn't know what he wanted, what I should do. I just let myself fall into him. Then, the situation became more and more intense, and we eventually couldn't suppress our desire for each other. We ended up in each other's arms all night long, blinded by the alcohol and emotions of the day. It was a complete aberration. We craved each other more than we could ever regret. The regret came later, but by then we were too far gone. The next morning I wanted to forget what I had done, but it was real, and I had to accept it. James looked at me wordlessly. We looked into each other's eyes, waiting for something, but then he spoke first. Luna, it's just bold feelings and I don't want to change anything. And with that, he left me. I took another look at myself then, the drunken 20-year-old deviant. I realized that the moment I'd craved so much, in the end, was just a momentary mistake. I realized that I hadn't fallen for him. He hadn't fallen for me, and in the end, there was nothing left. After that, I never saw him again. The feelings I shared with him were only temporary, but the incident left me deeply scarred. Even after 20 years, a person's heart doesn't change easily, but I didn't know my heart back then. And now I realize that it was all just an aberration. Through this story, I want to tell you that there may be times when things that happened in a drunken mood or feelings from the past come back to life. But you shouldn't think that's all there is to it. I want to tell you that in the end, You have to take a look at yourself and rethink what's important.